Hola, hello, and welcome to another episode of Spiritcraft, a podcast to nurture your soul and unleash the magic within. I'm Marta, your host, and today I have an episode filled with mystery and a bit of magic. In today's episode, we'll discuss the moon and how we can harness its power for personal growth. If you've arrived at this podcast from the coaching side, you might be wondering what I'm talking about. Don't skip this episode just yet, okay? Because I have plenty of information also for you. Sure, working with the moon and its cycles might sound like something out of a medieval poem or a fantasy novel, but it can actually be a practical and modern way to support your growth. But we'll get into that in a moment. We'll discuss the moon cycles and how they align with working on our personal growth. Then we'll look at some practical ways that we can harness this powerful energy. Now, I want to say something before I dive into it. I am extremely busy with my day job, which is, it's great. I enjoy what I do. But this means that because I'm working late quite a few days and I'm working on a couple of really big projects, I might not have the time or even the energy to keep up with every weekly schedule of Spiritcraft during October. I'm going to try to keep up with it, but if I miss a week or two, please bear with me. I will still be working in the background to try to get as much content as I can for you once I'm back. So hopefully everything's going to ease up a little bit after Halloween, essentially. So yeah, I just wanted to make you aware of this. Back to the topic for today. Now, since we're currently in a new moon phase when this episode actually goes live, I think is a great moment to dive into this type of magic. So, my witches, gather around the fire, grab your brew, whatever that might be, and let's dig in. A lunar cycle consists of 29.5 days, which is roughly similar to a calendar month. During a cycle, the moon's size seems to change based on how much the sun illuminates its surface, while the moon actually doesn't change its shape. Depending on the position of our satellite and its rotation, the sun will illuminate either the side we can see or the hidden side, and of course all the bits in between. And this is what causes the different moon phases that we know. We have been following the phases of the moon since antiquity for sowing and harvesting to mark the passing of time and so on. These days, living in big cities, we often lose track of what phase the moon is in, but many of us still feel its influence. And recent studies even suggest that the moon may affect our sleep cycles. Officially, the moon has 8 phases, which are new moon, waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning gibbous, last quarter, and waning crescent. Some people, especially those who practice witchcraft, paganism, Wicca, and other similar spiritual paths, also talk of the dark moon. Let's explain a little bit what each phase is. The new moon is the phase when the moon isn't visible in the sky, as the sun is lighting up the side that we cannot see. If you recognize the dark moon, then the new moon is when the moon first appears in the sky, which is like the first sliver that we can actually see, and the dark moon will be the period where it's hidden. The period between the new moon and when we can see half of it is called the waxing crescent. During this time, the surface of the moon becomes more visible until it reaches half, which is then called the first quarter. The time between that first quarter and the full moon is called the waxing gibbous. The full moon is then when we can see the whole circle of the moon illuminated by the sun, and from here it starts to disappear from view again, going through the waning gibbous where we still see a large surface, and then it reaches the last quarter, followed by the waning crescent. Once the moon disappears again, it will be known as the dark moon, or actually more commonly, the new moon. Since we understand now the lunar phases from a scientific perspective, we are going to discuss how these cycles can serve as tools for our personal growth and transformation. Just as the moon moves through different phases, we also experience cycles of change, growth, and reflection in our lives. If we think of the lunar cycle as a period of growth, peak, a period of release, a period of rest, then we can see a parallel with our own lives. Many people find that aligning their personal intentions and actions with the moon's energy helps them stay connected to a natural rhythm. and each phase of the moon has a unique energy that you can tap into to support your journey. Let's explore what each phase means for us and how you can work with these energies in a practical way. And from now on, I'm going to refer to the new moon as the period without a moon, because this is how it appears in most calendars, and so I want to make it less confusing for those that are starting to work with the moon phases when looking at the dates. But remember, before the new moon arrives, as I mentioned earlier, some witches like to work with the dark moon. The new moon is a phase all about beginnings. The sky is dark and it's a blank slate. It's perfect for setting intentions and planting the seeds of your goals. Just like the moon will gradually grow in light, the intentions you set now will also grow as you nurture them over the coming weeks. As the moon starts to show more light during the waxing crescent, it's time to take action on your goals. The energy of this phase encourages small but purposeful steps towards what you want to manifest. We reach then halfway, and this is called, remember, the first quarter. This phase brings a surge of energy, but it also brings challenges. It's a time to make decisions, to face any obstacles, and to push through with determination. As the moon grows larger, so do our projects and goals. The waxing gibbous phase is a refinement phase, when you should prepare for completion and look at the finishing touches. We then get the full moon up in the sky, and this is a time for reflection, but most importantly, it's a time for celebrating wins and releasing anything that no longer serves you. The waning gibbous is a phase about gratitude. During this time, reflect on what you've accomplished and give thanks for the journey so far. It's also an excellent time to share lessons learned and offer support to others, reinforcing positive energy as you prepare for introspection. The last quarter is a time for rest and release. During this time, reflect on what has worked and let go of what hasn't. This phase is about making space, clearing out anything that doesn't align with your goals so you can move forward without old baggage. We then reach the waning crescent phase, and again, focus on rest and reflection. This is really the time to slow down, prepare for renewal, and gather your energy. You should embrace the stillness and allow yourself to recover, setting the stage for the fresh start of the new moon. If you want to work with the dark moon energy, this is just the brief phase before the new moon, and it's a time where we can turn inward to reflect, to rest, and to release. It's the perfect time to let go of anything that's no longer serving us or to clear out emotional clutter. Once you've cleared that space, the new moon is all about inviting in fresh energy and setting those new intentions. So you can sort of put that letting go and release together with the setting new intentions, or you can separate it into two different phases. It's entirely up to you. Since we've had a new moon just yesterday, I thought it would be great to focus on this phase for today's episode. And as I mentioned earlier, that new moon signifies new beginnings, sowing the seeds of new projects, and so on. So this is great when we want to focus on the energy of creation. And by the way, one thing I forgot to say earlier, don't worry if you're listening to this thinking that you missed the chance to work with the new moon. The energy of each phase can be felt for a few days, both before and after the actual event. It is not a hard stop and change. After all, in nature, things rarely just change in the split of a second. Usually there's like a transition period, even if we don't notice it. So this is just to say that you still have time. And if you really missed it because you're listening to this in the middle of the lunar cycle, don't worry, because it will come again. It comes every month. If you're not big on rituals or all things magic seems a bit out there for you, you can still work with the new moon to focus your intentions. The simplest way is by journaling. In fact, I think we should make this a game. Every time I mention journaling from now on in any episode, you should take a sip of water or have a mindfulness break. We're going to call it the wellness check. And journaling. Sorry, I couldn't resist that. Right, so you can simply work with that new moon by journaling, wellness check, and you can set your intentions in your journal, or you can write down goals and the steps to accomplish them. There are some prompts that you can use. For example, what do I want to bring into my life during this lunar cycle? Or what small step can I take towards my goals? During this phase, you could also use affirmations. Things like, this new beginning brings me closer to my dreams, I am capable, worthy, and deserving of all the new possibilities coming my way. I set my intentions clearly and I trust that I have the power to manifest them. Or, for example, I embrace the blank slate of this new moon and create my future with intention. Of course, these are just examples. You should come up with your own if these don't resonate with you. Something that you can definitely do is to perform some rituals or spells if you're into the magic stuff with the new moon. And this will help your intention setting if you want to. For example, you could do a new moon intention setting ritual, for which you will need a piece of paper and a pen. If you want to do this, you will sit in a quiet space and take a few deep breaths to ground yourself. You can write down your intentions for this new moon cycle on the paper. Be clear about what you want to bring into your life, such as a habit, a feeling, or a new opportunity. And once written, hold the paper in your hands and repeat an affirmation like, I am planting the seeds of my intentions, and like seeds, they will grow. And visualize your intentions coming to life. Afterwards, fold the paper and place it somewhere special. You can place it on your altar if you have one, under your pillow, or anywhere else. The idea here is we're going to try to keep that energy alive. The new moon is also a great time to create a vision board for what you want to manifest in your life. Grab some magazines, wrapping paper, decorations, scissors, glue, and a board or a piece of paper, and just get creative. But before you start working on this, you should spend some time reflecting on your intentions for this lunar cycle. Then cut out any images, words, or symbols that resonates with what you want to create, and then arrange them and glue them onto your board while focusing on each item and visualizing it manifesting in your life. Place your vision board somewhere you can see it regularly for ongoing inspiration. I have to say for this next ritual, I am very lucky that I have a bathtub at home because a nice warm bath can be the perfect place to relax and to let your mind wander towards what you want to achieve without any judgment or restrictions. You can use bath salts and essential oils or herbs. For this, just run a warm bath and add your chosen bath salts and a few drops of essential oils, like lavender, rosemary, or even eucalyptus are good choices for cleansing and new beginnings. Now, bear in mind, if you're using herbs, cleaning the bath afterwards can be a pain, so I recommend using a fabric bag made of cotton or something similar. You can place the herbs in the bag like a giant cup of tea, basically, and steep the herbs in a pot in the kitchen, and then pour the strained water into the bath. As you settle into the bath, take some deep breaths and visualize the new moon as a blank canvas. Reflect on what you want to bring into your life. You can use the water to symbolically wash away anything holding you back, and picture your doubts and your fears being absorbed by the water. Once you finish, just let the water drain, and visualize it taking away anything that no longer serves you, and this will leave you with a clean slate. If you're using cleansing herbs, I would recommend to anoint yourself with some oil afterwards to ensure that any empty space left after cleansing the negative energy is filled again, but this time with positive energy and protection. Your favorite body oil can serve great if you apply it with the right intentions. Otherwise, you can use a few drops of olive oil on the top of your head, your forehead, the back of your neck, your wrists, and the soles of your feet. And this will also work great, but always use your intention. Now, a bit of a warning. If you use any essential oils, follow the correct dilution guidelines. Never ingest them, and check for any allergies or reactions that you might have. The following ritual, it would be great to be performed every month at every new moon. You can use your journal or a piece of paper. As a journaling exercise, wellness check, you can use this time to reflect on what you want to achieve and what might be holding you back from the perspective of having already overcome those challenges and achieve your goals. For this, you will need a pen, a paper, and if you want, an envelope instead of your journal. The idea here is that you're going to write a letter to your future self, detailing what you wish to manifest by the next full moon or within the lunar cycle that you're in. You have to be encouraging and write as if your intentions have already come true. If you're using the envelope, seal the letter in that envelope and date it with the time you want to open it, for example, during the next full moon. Then keep it in a safe place and return to it later to reflect on how your intentions have unfolded. Whether you want to dive into the rituals or keep things simple and less magical, that is entirely up to you. But following the lunar cycles is a great way to set goals and to keep track of your progress. As we mentioned earlier, you can use the new moon to set those goals and intentions, taking action during the waxing phase. You will keep track and you will ensure that you're on the right path and adjust as necessary. Ideally, you'll have achieved your goal by the full moon, or it might be just a time to celebrate your wins, because remember, every success is an opportunity to acknowledge your progress, your skills, and your accomplishments. As the full moon turns into the waning phase, you can then release any setbacks or any parts of your plan that are just not working. And this is also a great time to rest and to recharge. After all, following the lunar phases creates a natural rhythm for setting goals and reflecting on your journey. Of course, there are some practical ways for you to track your progress with the moon phases. You can use a lunar calendar to write down what intentions you've set for the new moon and then track your progress as you move through each phase. Reflect on these goals during the first quarter, the full moon, the last quarter. Check in and just see if you're on track or if you need to adjust anything. You can also create a moon phase tracker in your journal. Draw the phases of the moon and then leave space beside each one of them to write down reflections or actions taken or any changes noticed during that phase. Everybody is always very excited talking about the full moon, maybe the dark moon, but don't forget about the waxing and waning phases. You can always align your actions with them. During the waxing phase, which is from the new moon to the full moon, remember to focus on growth because it's the best time to work on your goals, to start new projects, and take practical steps towards manifesting your desires. During the waning phase, which is from the full moon to the new moon, as the moon is slowly disappearing from view, focus on release and reflection. This is the ideal time to let go of old habits, to declutter your physical and mental space, and to evaluate what's not working. And this might mean rewriting an old belief, ending something that drains your energy, or letting go of tasks that no longer serve your priorities. And if you need a reminder, we worked on letting go a couple of episodes ago, so go and check it out if you need a little bit more guidance on that. I don't know if I've mentioned this before in the podcast, but basically I use reminders and calendar alerts for everything. I actually follow a calendar that I can add to my Google Calendar, and it has the phases of the moon and other astrological events. So another way is to essentially just have reminders. You can set those reminders or those calendar alerts so that you can check in with yourself during each moon phase. You can then ask questions like, what is growing in my life? Or what needs to be celebrated? What can I let go of to make space? And this is going to help you to stay attuned to the moon's rhythm and to stay aligned with your own journey. Something that can help you keep that intention during the day is to use small symbols that align with the energy of each of the phases. For example, during the new moon, you can carry a seed or an acorn in your pocket, and that can represent your potential and new beginnings. During the waxing crescent, you can have an arrow charm or use something else that might represent movement. And you can leave this on your workspace or again carry it in your pocket to remind you of that forward progress. During the full moon, use a round object like a sphere or a token to symbolize wholeness and reflection. And then in the waning crescent is about letting go or lightness. So for example, keeping a feather nearby can remind you to release of anything that weighs you down. Just remember to check in regularly. You can keep asking if your intentions have been growing as you expected, or if there are things that are working well or things that are feeling stagnant. But don't forget to celebrate what you have achieved, even if it's small progress. You could light incense, meditate, or journal about your wins to reinforce that sense of gratitude and success, especially during the full moon. If you're worried about consistency, you can always join a moon circle. This is like a group of friends or like-minded individuals that come together to set intentions and share reflections during different moon phases. This provides a sense of community and accountability, making it even more likely that you will stay consistent in working with the lunar energies. Let me know if you want me to invite you to my moon circle, and then we can keep each other accountable. During the waning crescent, prioritize rest and restoration. Remember to take a break from social media, to go out for gentle walks, or adding yoga to your routine. take time to slow down, because that's going to help you avoid burnout, and it will ensure that you have the energy needed for the next moon phase. There are a few myths that I found when I was researching for this episode, which I find very interesting because some of them are kind of opposite to each other. So I thought it would be fun to share them with you. One of the most long-lasting myths is that the full moon causes people to go crazy, and this might result in more accidents or hospital visits or even strange behavior. The term lunacy comes from the Latin word luna, which means moon, and that is the Spanish word for moon as well. And while it's a romantic idea that the full moon has this dramatic impact on human behavior, it's very sad, but most studies show no evidence linking that full moon to increased incidence of crazy behavior. So it seems that it might be confirmation bias at play. People are essentially more likely to notice and remember strange events when they know it's a full moon. I don't know about you, but I do actually feel different when there is a full moon. And I don't know if it's because I like the fact that it's a full moon or if it's because it actually influences my behavior. But it seems it's not as traumatic as we might think. However, it is a myth that the moon doesn't affect our lives. And a lot of people just believe that the moon is just a celestial body which has no real effect. And scientifically, we know that the moon influences the ocean tides. But what it gets interesting is that recent studies suggest that it might even affect our sleep cycles. And I think I have a link in the show notes for that. I hope I won't forget to add it. We are water after all, and while we might not go out howling at the moon and becoming werewolves and going all crazy out on the streets, there's going to be some influence. My theory for this is that right now our lives are not dependent of the natural cycles as they were many, many years ago. We live in a house with electricity and artificial light. We use calendars and alarm clocks. And so we have lost that link to the cycles of the moon, to the cycles of the seasons and things like that. I think we probably have forgotten, or we are not so attuned to our bodies to notice those changes or those effects anymore. But if we were to remove everything technological from our lives and go back to a simpler way of life, we would probably feel the effects of the moon and nature in our bodies much more strongly, I think. However, whether or not you're deeply connected to the moon, there is something powerful about working with these natural cycles to enhance your personal growth. The moon's cycles give us a moment to pause, to reflect, and to align ourselves with the natural rhythms of life. Now, making a wish on a new moon is not going to magically solve everything. That would be a massive myth. You still have to put effort. The new moon is a powerful time for setting intentions, but those intentions need nurturing and they need action to manifest. Think of the moon like a partner in your growth. You set the intention, but it's your job to take those practical steps to bring it to life. It is very important to align those intentions with tangible actions. And like the seeds planted in the soil, goals need time, they need energy and care to grow. In some traditions, the dark moon, which is that phase before the new moon that I was mentioning at the beginning of the episode, when the sky is completely dark, is often seen as dangerous or something to be avoided. The dark moon represents a time of turning inward, but it's not really something to fear. It is instead a powerful opportunity for rest, for reflection, and for releasing what no longer serves you. It's a necessary part of the cycle. We have to let go to make room for the new. There's also an assumption that working with the moon is only for witches, Wiccans, or pagans. And while it's true that many spiritual paths have a deep connection with the moon, you don't need to be a witch to benefit from the moon's energy. Farmers, sailors, and ancient cultures around the world have worked with the moon for centuries. So you can use the moon's phases as a guide, whether you're spiritual, interested in self-improvement, or simply want a better rhythm for your goals. The moon is universal and can offer valuable lessons to anyone willing to observe its cycles. Finally, this is not so much of a myth, but I think it is very cute because a lot of children in particular, they will think that the moon changes its size during the phases. And it is quite fascinating when you're a kid to see this light in the sky changing shape. And I think it's quite important to basically remember that the moon doesn't actually change its size or its shape. And what we see is that amount of sunlight reflecting it. I mentioned this a little bit as a metaphor because our growth and our potential are always there, but sometimes some aspects of it are more visible than others. So like the moon, sometimes we might feel hidden, or we might feel that we add no value, or we might feel fully illuminated and on top of the world. And this is going to depend on our own phase. But that doesn't mean that our potential has changed. Our potential is always there, is whether we are shining a light on it or not. The moon cycles remind us that everything in life moves in phases. Sometimes we're growing, other times we're reflecting, resting, or even releasing. By aligning with the energy of each phase, we tap into a natural rhythm that can help us manifest our intentions and navigate life's changes with more grace and clarity. Whether you choose to do rituals, to journal, or to simply observe the moon's phases and reflect on your journey, remember that change doesn't happen overnight. It is a cycle, a process, and every single step contributes to your growth, no matter how small. I would love for you to set an intention for this new moon. Take a moment to reflect on what you want to bring into your life, and then take that first small step. Share your intention with me on social media or send me an email. I would love to hear how you're working with the moon to create positive change. And as I said, let me know if you want me to add you to my moon circle. Before I sign up for the week, let me remind you, I'm going to try to share an episode every week in October as I've been doing. But remember that it might not be possible. So I hope you stay, and I hope you forgive me if I don't manage to keep up with the schedule. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review or to share it with a friend who could benefit from embracing a little more magic in their life. And until next time, keep nurturing your soul, and remember, unleash the magic within.